everybody. I'm Eileen. Nice. And give me just a moment so that I do everything correctly. Optimizing. Well begun is half done, and I'm sharing the wrong screen. It's, these things happen. Try one more time. Oh, there we are. Now I think you should all be seeing it. And of course, I can't see you because I'm presenting. So I'm gonna see it. Oh, good. I'm gonna just pop this over here and open my chat just in case I need to see something. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Eileen Daly-Boas. I'm a librarian at the University of Rochester, and we are doing an inadvertent opportunity, open access, digital equity, and a high school college collaboration. And let me introduce, or I'll have Kristen and Danyelle introduce themselves. Kristen.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Kristen Totleben, and I am a liaison librarian at the River Campus Libraries at the University of Rochester.
Hi, I'm Danyelle Westbrook. I am the high school librarian at Victor High School.
So first, one of the things I'd like to say is we would like to learn from everyone as well. So the best part about any conference is that you get to learn from others, not just from the people who are presenting. So as you think of things, feel free to throw them in the chat. So before COVID, we just wanted to set the stage how the U of R libraries and the International Baccalaureate program work together, and Danyelle's school is part of that. International Baccalaureate schools have a process. I can have Danyelle just say a little bit about that, but where they do a lot of experiential learning, and they do a lot of hands-on theory of knowledge. They really, the program is really designed sort of as opposed to AP, where you often learn a lot of material and take a test, which is a lot like college. They do the other part of sort of prep for college, which is thinking about how you learn. And so before COVID, for the University of Rochester, our campus was open to all visitors. We were beginning to think about open access and open educational resources. We have a heavily used print reserve collection that we would use for our undergraduates. And we had consultations with library, mostly in person, a little bit of Zoom. And when we would meet with high schoolers, right, they would come in, we would all be all hands on deck. Everybody got to learn from each other, and we sort of worked as a group. During COVID, like most places, our visitor policies didn't allow any visitors on campus. We've just started to relax those. We'll see how that keeps going. We started promoting more open access and open educational resources, including a grant program for instructors who create open educational resources. But we were also faced with publishers' limits on ebook licenses, which meant that many students couldn't get or couldn't afford a textbook. We couldn't get books on reserve. So like we would buy a textbook and then a student could come in and borrow it for a couple hours. So we really struggled with that, and as did our professors and our instructors and our students. And Danyelle?
So I took a little bit of a different approach. I did like a before, during, and after COVID, and after COVID is what I'm hoping could happen. But I believe I was a typical librarian in a high school. We had the books in the library, kids would come in and browse and borrow. I would be part of the English department once in a while. I had a website that not a lot of kids used, but it was there. I would collaborate with teachers for different units, do database lessons, all that kind of stuff. But during COVID, all of that kind of stopped. Our kids were hybrid, so they were there either Monday and Tuesday or Thursday and Friday. So when they were in school, they were in their classes. When they were out of school, they were Zooming in with their teachers. And so the library was closed the whole school year. So my job changed a little bit. I did a lot of how-to videos. I reconfigured the website to make it more user-friendly and have more distant learning resources on it. I was a lot of tech support with both students and teachers and staff. I helped the administration do their virtual college night and things like that. So not your typical library duties, but I'm hoping after COVID that we can do some reinventing of myself. And we'll talk about that a little bit later.
And so here, can I jump in, Danyelle? I just realized, I think. So one of the things that Danyelle was really gracious in doing is reached out to students that we had worked with before about, they have an extended essay, which is an independent 4,000 word essay that is sort of the capstone of the IB experience. And one of the things that I think we wanted to show with this especially is we wanted to capture the same things that these students are talking about going forward, whether or not we're virtual or not. Does that sound okay, Danyelle? Do you want to say? Okay.
Yep.
I looked at Disney's experiential culture in their US domestic parks and how that appealed to like the millennial generation.
To see if neurological based training was better or more efficient than traditional based training in terms of like rehabilitation after injuries in sports.
The effects of antibiotics versus like natural antibiotics, synthetic antibiotics against the growth of E. coli.
It focused on Ai Weiwei, who is an artist from China, his impact on social issues in China and around the world through his artwork.
Cell growth and how that can relate to cancer.
I think I did, yeah. I just don't think I found a variety of resources.
Google Scholar for more like not specific things.
A little bit.
Okay.
I don't think so.
No.
A couple articles off of Google Scholar, but I just found that the articles that were coming up on Google Scholar were the same ones that I had found on the Gale databases. There was a lot of overlap there.
So, like databases, I really knew how to work my way around databases.
Not really, Victor. The databases are great for like high school research. They didn't have much for past that.
Right.
A little bit. I used mainly our school ones to look at like Disney itself and the company more.
Okay.
And then like when we went to U of R, I think that's where I was able to look more for those like personal experiences and like some like statistics and stuff that could kind of go in with my question.
And I really started with the databases. Those were probably the most helpful getting going and finding good sources from those databases, from like the Gale databases.
Okay. The other database I used, it was definitely a database for more specific ones because they got like really technical. But
kind of learn those skills prior to college, which was really nice because I did my first semester, I had to take like a writing, like basic writing course kind of, and we had to write 4 essays total in the semester. And I think it was really helpful having those like skills of sort of like you said, like evaluating sources and knowing like which ones are going to fit in with my paper and which ones kind of aren't. I think that was really helpful to just be able to know how to like fine tune my search and like know what I'm looking for those papers. And then of course, like writing a 4,000 word essay, you kind of get used to having to write other ones. So writing shorter essays felt less stressful and everything.
Like for my MBA class, we had to learn how to use the databases because we'll have to use them eventually for that program. And like it's extreme, like so similar to the U of R one that I was like, oh, this is great. I've already had experience with this.
So kind of an experience where it's okay to ask for help rather than in the past you're kind of like do it all on your own, like you shouldn't need to ask for help. But this one, it was so beneficial to get other people's perspectives and opinions. I know when he read my rough draft, that was really helpful because he gave me like specific areas I should work on. And then he said, I like this idea. It's very interesting. I would elaborate on that more, maybe include something about this. So I think overall, just even working with a professor next year or just other peers, just being able to take constructive criticism better and develop on that.
It was kind of to prepare us. Like, it was to like have the experience and like do all that, but it's totally preparing you for college. And I messed up then so that I didn't have to mess up when it like quote unquote really mattered. You know what I mean?
Right.
Kind of the structure, like introductions and conclusions, those were always my hardest things in high school. And I definitely feel like the extended essay made me more comfortable with that. And also like databases, I really knew how to work my way around databases.
So moving forward, Kristen's one of the things we wanted to do was to make sure we preserve that sort of relationship. So Kristen.
So as Danyelle mentioned, we have an opportunity with experiencing this pandemic and thinking how we can reinvent our work and think more creatively in ways that because our work has changed. The goals of meeting and working, helping students is the same in many ways, but we've been exposed to new ways of working with each other that we need to take advantage of that. So right now, so usually the past few years when Victor High School students and Danyelle came to visit, it was once a semester. And this past year, we were able to meet online in the fall. And then in the spring, we did not meet. So as you know, lots of things in the past year and a half, many things happened that we did not plan, we did not anticipate, and we went with the flow. So currently we're continuing to work at least partially from home. We're still learning as we go how we're going to adapt to our work situation. Open access resources, they were important in the past, but the emphasis a lot of times, besides the in-person college experience for high school students coming in, there was the environment, the experience, but also this idea that we have these databases we subscribe to that you can only access when you're on campus. And with these open access resources, it was an opportunity to expose them to these scholarly sources that are available to the world, and to we would like to work a little bit more on how to help them evaluate them moving forward, because we think it will be a very big part of their future as future students and whichever paths they take in life. Another thing that we're working on is so adding more, like I said, the open access resources, repositories to guides for research or courses. We'd like to develop a guide for curating for more OA resources and evaluating them as well, recognizing that it is difficult when all these things are free online, and making sure students can distinguish between preprints and finished materials and the process of publication. That preprints, for example, in the sciences are very popular, seeing the publication of the research before it's a finished product, but recognizing that to respond to, if they're going to use them, to practice responsible citation practices. And also that in the past, we had some Zoom meetings before COVID, but now it's just so glove in hand right now. It seems that it can be more connections with the students as we continue to develop our collaboration together. And for Victor.
So unfortunately, Victor this was our last class of IB students. So our IB program is no longer, but moving forward, I love what the students got out of writing the extended essay. And I would like to see that moving forward, continuing to collaborate with Eileen and Kristen whether it's through Zoom or having them come to Victor, us going to the U of R. I think one of the things that I'm really going to work on is being part of the English department and being able to be at their department meetings and be able to help with those research issues that come up 9 through 12, really. But having those seniors get that research experience, because not just those 5 students I talked to today or in the video, but every student you talk to that's been through the IB program, that extended essay and that what they have done to do that 4,000 word paper has really prepared them for college. And I feel like our students need to continue with that, even though we'll no longer have the IB program. Our students need to know how to go through the databases, use Google Scholar. Now that open access has more availability, getting them to use that and really go to college prepared for that next level.
And I think this is going to be Kristen talking, and Kristen and Danielle, about how we skilled up. So just a few of the things that we looked at and learned.
So as Danyelle mentioned, it's an opportunity this past year and a half to reskill, to reinvent what we do. The goals are very similar in support of our students and instructors. But in that time, we learned a lot of different tools. So Eileen and I, we developed instructional videos using Camtasia and other software. With our learning management system, Blackboard, we are continuously making little widgets and little tools through H5P, which is an open source tool for making instructional activities. We've also used Microsoft Teams for connecting more with our colleagues, so that as from a distance, we could be able to communicate quickly and effectively. So just trying to find ways to connect with our colleagues and our constituents. So with students and instructors, it's been just finding all these ways to feel more connected through an online presence.
And I have learned a ton of new technology over the last year to help our students, whether it was using those open access resources and getting things on a PDF and using Kami to annotate and be able to share those PDFs with other people. Definitely Screencastify has helped me just make videos to help those students with their research aspect of writing papers, and Canva for their presentations. And we're a Google school, so we use Google Classroom, and that has been helpful to a lot of our students to have everything available in one spot, easy to find. So I definitely have learned how to collaborate more with teachers and students through technology. And I think that's really going to help us in the future when we work with the U of R. And it may be a little difficult to take 250 students to the U of R, but having this technology that we've used now will hopefully give us the opportunity for them to work with a large number of students.
Another way that we've skilled up as well is there was a mention of WordPress. And in this case, Eileen had mentioned earlier about becoming more knowledgeable about open educational resources, whether that's the repositories themselves and the types of licensing they have, but also in working with instructors and students in creating open educational resources. So learning about the rights and permissions with different kinds of resources. And for example, I'm working with a French professor currently to help with her courses and with her students creating open educational resources and helping choose appropriate sources that they can use and to make an original open educational resource. So there's a lot of different ways that we're rethinking how we work.
And I'll just jump in because I realized we've been dealing with open access and open educational resources for a few years. Open access, or just to define a couple of terms, which I could have done earlier, open access means anyone in the world can get to it, but not necessarily edit it or remix or revise. And open educational resources are ones that when you download with that Creative Commons license, you can edit it and change it so that it fits your needs as long as you follow the rules of the license. And so one of the things we've been encouraging faculty to do is, and faculty are very excited about, is creating, say, textbooks that are growing textbooks that other people can take and adapt for their own use, and maybe change up the questions to suit the particular area they're in, or to create translations of, if that helps for their student population. I realized I probably should have said that early on. That was my mistake. So open access, opening doors to research. We'll talk a little bit more now about open access. Kristen.
Thank you so much, Eileen, for distinguishing open access and open educational resources. That was a really excellent point. So now moving forward, as mentioned, and as most of you have experienced, we're all working remotely, and there's been, with the students, with high school students, for example, visiting, there's limited access to getting hold of publications. So this moment of last fall, October 2020, working with 3 of Danyelle's students, and realizing, oh wow, this open access facet in our discovery layer, like, yes, it's been there for a while, and I know open access resources are great and helpful, but just this moment of like, wow, and they're actually of interest to these students, and they might just be something that they're going to consider using for their research. And that was a real aha moment, because for years it was the emphasis on this is the distinctive things, the collections, the experience, this moment that we're giving, that they experience by coming to college, but that we can give that to them through Zoom and also through open access resources, while further helping them learn how to evaluate sources themselves. So really that creativity, the making do of what we have and what we can easily get to them has been really great to kind of like, I can't see the forest because of the trees, like I'm actually noticing this now, but Eileen had made a good point as well in the Expand the Toolbox section of this slide, that the open library and the unpaywall extension can help outside the library environment as well. So Open Library is a website with other open resources. And did you want to describe a little bit? You probably described the unpaywall better.
Sure. So yeah, the Open Library is really quickly is based on the legal premise that if a library has a print copy of a book, they can loan a digital copy. It has to be a limited time loan of one digital copy, and the Open Library is digitizing a ton of books. They keep them in their dark archive, and it means there's, for a lot of books, not as much recent textbooks, but a lot of, they're working on it. It means that across the world, anyone can borrow one of these books for sort of 2 hours at a time. It's amazing. The unpaywall extension, if you've ever been on a site where there's a journal and you're like, oh, I don't know if we have access, or you can't tell, obviously, that the author or their institution has paid the fee to make it open access, the unpaywall extension, it goes in your browser, will tell you if you have access to it. And if you do, it will automatically prompt and say, here you have access to the PDF, which is amazing. I just wanted to show in this next one, not everyone, like almost all of you, whether you're at a college or probably have one nearby or university, but you don't have to even limit it to a university nearby. But if this is when you search the University of Rochester, sort of their main library search bar, when you hit return, when you hit enter, the first thing that comes up is this sort of a screen. And you'll notice here, students can click peer reviewed, so automatically limiting to peer reviewed journals, but then most will have this open access filter as well. And so you can see here, I just as an example, library collaboration with high schools and college transition, which is something we care about. If you do peer review, open access, and I just limited it to the last few years, you can see you get 552 results, and you can start scrolling through and see, oh, what are these interested? Where are these from? And so one of the things we're really excited about is that high schools can, and I know some of the IB schools that we're working with, I'm sure when we work further with Danyelle as her students work on projects, is they can do a lot of work before they come to the U of R, before they actually come. They can sort of find some things to get started. And then when they come to campus, they can unclick this open access and they'll see a whole lot more. But it's a really good way to get students started. Can
I just jump in for a second?
Yeah.
At the high school level, we don't use U of R databases frequently, unless we're working with Eileen and Kristen. But what I usually tell my students is to go to Google Scholar, and anything that they find on the right side of the page that's a PDF, that's an open access resource. That is something that they can click on, they can get the PDF from, they don't have to have access to the journal. And that's kind of why I asked the question when I was interviewing the students, did you use Google Scholar? Because they don't realize that the stuff they're finding on Google Scholar is open access that they're able to get into. And some of those students were 3 or 4 years out of high school, and Google Scholar really didn't offer a lot of open access resources. So I never taught it a whole bunch just because we didn't get a lot of great results. But now, since the pandemic, we have noticed that when you use Google Scholar, a lot of that stuff that is coming up, there's more access to those free resources, which students, it's such an advantage for them when they're doing a paper like this, that they may not be able to find the stuff on our high school databases. And even Chloe, when she said, I didn't use Google Scholar because I found the same articles in the database. Well, that's because they've made those open access. We pay for the database, but now they've made them open access for those students who may not have access to databases, either because you have to be on campus or whatever the case may be. So for us, it looks a little bit different because we don't have an open access on our website or how we use our research. We tend to take the kids to Google Scholar.
And I think one of the things that I know Kristen and I and Danyelle are also interested in is if you're at Google Scholar, sometimes there's not as many keys to figuring out how to evaluate. You have to actually click through to do the evaluation. So that's why we really want to focus on, Kristen and I can do meetings with students 5 at a time. They don't have to get a bus to come in, and we can talk about some of the evaluation of some of these very specific scholarly resources. You know, if you're working on cancer research, we're going to hook her up with our biology librarian, right? Or if they're doing chemistry, hook them up with our chemistry librarian to talk a little bit about how to evaluate some of those very specific things. And it doesn't have to be, is everybody ready? Can they come on a bus? Can they get here? That can still happen, but we can do a little bit more pre-work and a little bit more targeted work together going forward, because now everybody knows how to do Zoom and things like that. Oh, so this is me, right? I'm running it. The future's so bright. So one of the things we want to know is also, what are you all doing? Are you in high school, college collaborations? What works, what doesn't? What are your plans for the fall and moving forward? And how are you reinventing and adapting in terms of what was learned through COVID and what's available now? So we'd really like to hear in the chat or in the questions, sort of what you're doing. And I'm going to stop sharing. I think I can take these questions and put them in the chat so everybody can see them. I always feel like that's a little nicer, if that's okay. And I have not been keeping track of the chat, so I do see some people. Good, excellent. Thank you. I'm like looking through all the. Oh, excellent. At SUNY Erie, trying to encourage our professors to publish some of their work in open access. It can be really challenging. Still, the best journals charge an awful lot for those open access fees. It's nice, and SUNY is, I think, doing really good work trying to come up with ways to make it easier. Any questions? Yeah, I will say, I know that Brian Smith is our Western New York IB coordinator. And when I showed him the open access toggle button, he said, oh, they can really, usually I would go into their classroom and do like 10, maybe 30 minutes where we would sort of talk about how to brainstorm, how to limit, how to find things. And he's like, now that we can do this, it's going to be great. Yes, there are. There are some really great. Allison, do you have the link to that? If you could put the link up, it's amazing. Their open access database. It looks through all sorts of things, and if anyone is interested and wants to know more, we're Kristen and I especially are happy to talk about those open access things. And I can say Danyelle has been amazing. When her students would come, they used to come in a big group, and then we branched them off because they were always so prepared. They always had more work done on their papers and things like that. So if you're looking for someone who really knows how to prep students, or maybe you're new in your library, Danyelle is a fantastic resource. We've learned so much from her, so it's been great. As a high school librarian, I'm noticing question. I noticed the AP and advanced students are highly motivated. Others tend to want to get their papers done as quickly as possible. Yeah. How do you reach the average students? Yeah, in using the databases. So one of the things I always think about with the databases and doing involved research, and I'll let Danyelle talk about this in a second. I'll give you, Danyelle, a minute to think about what your answer is while I spiel just a little bit. I find if they're given a topic, it's more frustrating than if you say, what are you interested in? And so like when you say, name a topic, there's research on it, often they'll be like, well, that's not true. And it's like, are you interested in hip hop, research on hip hop music and science or something? They're like, well, there's nothing. And then it turns out there's always something, especially like in our databases, there's always something. So one of the things I think is tapping into that curiosity. And one of the things open pedagogy can do is create. So open pedagogy is when you don't just create work for an assignment that then someone's going to grade, it's going to hand back, and it's going in the garbage. So if you can come up with things like, let's add to, and there's certainly FERPA rules, which means you have to ask about, you have to make sure you're not publishing things under students' names, right? They have a right to privacy. But thinking about what is it that they could create that could help the next set of students that are coming? What could they create that they have a passion about and that someone might use again? I think that reusable assignment, that thing where you're not just putting it in because someone wants to give you a grade. Danyelle, do you have any ideas?
I think I try to get, especially the freshmen, try to get them using the database that first year. And I work with a lot of freshman teachers. We do a project where they get to choose a performer. So it's kind of their choice. They can choose a musician, they can choose a comedian, a sports team, whatever. And they have to do research on this person or group, and also cities where they kind of travel. And that kind of gets them used to using the databases. They have the option to use Google as well, but one of the requirements is they have to use a database. And so I try to tap those teachers who are doing any kind of paper and asking them, hey, can I come in and do a lesson on the databases? And I always explain to the students, yes, Google is great. I use Google all the time. But with the database, you don't need to worry about the validity and any of that stuff. Like, we pay for this. The people do that for you. and usually the information is right there, and you can teach them how to filter and what the different sources are. But I try to get them as freshmen so that they at least have that experience right at the beginning of their high school experience, and at least know how to find the databases and where they can get to them, and how they can use them for basic stuff. And our teachers are pretty good at using the databases for all of their research papers that they do. Every English class does at least one research paper a year, or does one paper that they have to do. It may not be a formal, 7-page paper, but some kind of formal research that they use the databases for. I hope that answered your question.
And Kristen, are you okay if we didn't, absolutely come back, but I'll get to Amber's question. Kristen, are you okay if I handle this one? Because I think I've been around. Amber's question is, how did your relationship start? Is it a requirement of the IB program? We did not answer that. We were trying to make sure we had enough time to have a conversation just in case. So for almost 18 years, the U of R has been working with the Western New York, it's not consortium, something of IB schools, collection of IB schools. And so what would happen is we would bring at one time 200 students at a time. That was a mistake. Don't ever bring 200 high school students from 7 different schools into your library at the same time. It's chaotic. But what we would do is as part of their extended essay, we had a few connections with like Wilson High School, which was nearby, and we just sort of tried to keep building that. So the juniors would come in the fall, and then the seniors would come in the spring. No, first, yeah, reverse that. The juniors would come in the spring, and then the seniors would come in the fall to sort of finish up their research. And we started to get a really good handle on how to get to, one of the things we were interested in, and this is something, if you're a high school folk in your university or your college doesn't seem that interested, or you're a college person saying, I'm not that interested in working with high schools, we have both learned so much. I have learned more about working with first-year students by working with high school students. I know those high school students and high school teachers and librarians, they used to say like, well, we tell them how to write a citation and we hit them over the head. And it's like, well, that's important. But evaluating and understanding how these works talk to each other is way more important when they get to college. That's not to say that it's not important to do citation, but I think they tell their students more truthful things about what college might be like. And we also understand what students come in thinking, this is how I'm supposed to work. This is what I have experience in. So we don't immediately go as college level folks just going into jargon where they're like, we have no idea what you're talking about. It has been a really powerful relationship, I think, for making us both understand what's expected, what they're learning. And the students, I've seen a lot of students who then come to U of R, and just their comfort level. I was a first-gen student. I walked on my college campus the first day. I was lost. I was confused. I had no idea how to do research. Now there were no databases at that point because I'm old enough but I didn't know what I was doing. And this really connected them and gave, I think most of them know, the library is a really good place to get started. If you don't have a question, they're going to be a pretty good place to get started. Danyelle, do you want to talk a little bit more about, because you came into an existing relationship and then you built on it in an amazing way. So.
Right. So I came in when we were going as the big conglomerate to U of R, with all these other schools. And we had a very small IB class. I think at its highest, we maybe had 12 or 15 students. So to us, our kids came in already having that pre-research done, already knowing what they wanted to do, and they just wanted to get down and get to work. And it was really hard because that's not where everybody was at. So I reached out and said, hey, is there any chance we could bring our students separately? We're small enough. And they were like, yes, please. And it was great. Our students loved to go to the campus. Some of them, their favorite part was lunch and eating in the dining hall, but that's the college experience. But they got I think they benefited so much from finding books in the stacks, because high school is Dewey Decimal. College is Library of Congress. So so they just had so much experience that they could take with them and get there. And so we would take them in the spring of their junior year, usually around March, and then we would take them back again in the fall, usually around October, for their senior year to get any loose ends. Their papers were always due at the end of January, beginning of February. So that would get them a chance to do any last minute research, fill in any of the holes they had. And by their senior year, you know, there wasn't a whole lot. They didn't have to be handheld. If they needed to find a book, they knew where to go. They knew how to use the printers to print something from the inside of a book. We've gotten to the point now where we could borrow books from them. The kids would send me the information and we could borrow books through our BOCES system. So it was just such a great experience that I'm hoping we can continue and figure out a way to get our seniors, any student that's going on to college, I think really would love that experience. I have two sons myself who graduated at Victor, and they didn't go through the IB program. So they didn't have that experience. And it was, you know, a big learning curve for them.
Kristen, you want to add anything?
I wanted to touch on Karen Greenberg's question about suggestions for how to involve more average students who are usually not as interested in doing involved research or looking into the databases. So I wanted to kind of riff off what Eileen was saying about how with open pedagogy, with you know, if students know that with an assignment or with some sort of that they're helping build the curriculum, or you might be showing their draft of a paper as an example. I mean, I remember even that when I was in college, and like it was just really great to see another student's work, and just, you know, or if I was to, which sources do you think would provide the best, you know, kind of building for these voices to get into conversation together? I think when they know that other people, such as their potential peers, are going to be looking at it, I think that would be very inspirational and really it puts the heat on to do their best.
And I think also respecting them as knowledge producers. And I know that seems, you know, a sophomore, you're like, oh, they're not going to be knowledge producers, but they're producing YouTube videos and TikTok videos and explainers and book trailers in some cases, right? Yeah, they are creating. And so taking advantage of recognizing that they are creators in other parts of their life, and then saying, but now you're just supposed to go and find the facts and sort of pop them together and regurgitate them, which isn't, I don't think that's anyone's model of education, just for the record, but it can feel like that to them. So yeah, thinking about how what they're doing for fun, what they're creating, and bringing parts of that in. That's why Danyelle is like, you interested in pop stars or whatever? That's something to do. And I know it's 1:45, and I know there was I know there's a hard out a little bit before then, but I wanted to make sure, Sally, that we're okay. Okay. Yeah, so I would say it's the students are often the ones who don't think about themselves as creators in the classroom. I don't think that's what faculty or teachers are doing, or librarians. I think we can promote that more. And you can see from Danyelle's students, they all came in with these amazing ideas that they were super passionate about. And just being able to feed that passion and be like, oh, you're interested in Ai Weiwei? We have an art music library, and we just let her go there, and we had her talk to that librarian. Okay, good. I wanted to make sure it's as you might have guessed, I can go on and on.
One of the great things Paige was saying, I didn't put it in the video, but she was doing the neuroscience, and she said her articles were so in depth, and she didn't understand. And you brought in a librarian who was the librarian for that specialty, and sat down with her and explained things to help her understand A, what she was looking for, and B, like teach her some of the stuff that she didn't know the terms for, because as a high school student and a junior, she knew nothing about any of that stuff. So it was great to have someone who is an expert. I always tell the students when going to U of R, they have librarians for subject areas. I do everything, and so I know a little bit about everything, but they're really knowledgeable about their subject areas, so they can really help you find the resources and kind of show you the way to look for those. And she said that was so helpful to her because she didn't even know where to start. So it was great to have those subject specific experts to help her.
And thinking about like the first thing, if you can't find that expert, is what are those databases that actually have more explainers? Here's what's going on. And that one of the things we really liked about this is all the students, it was like, how do you evaluate an article if it's too hard, if everything is jargon? Well, that's too hard. It might be too hard even when you're a senior in college, because there's a lot, like recognizing that spectrum. And then finding, like in some cases in literature, is finding, are there some something that explains themes, and you're like, how do you do that step up? And watching them even in a day go from, I wasn't sure what this was, but I know this term's important because it came up in every article I was looking at. So then I researched that term, and now I know it, like now I'm interested in something else. And I think that's the thing that I think our collaboration has been great too. They start with one idea, I want to do work on Ai Weiwei, and then she really focused in, because it turns out even with one artist, there's a whole bunch of ways to go about how you look at that work. Exactly, the evolution of the query, and recognizing that your first question might not be your last question, and that you get to, especially in college, often follow the path to what's interesting to you. And one of the things I love about all my colleagues and with all the high school librarians we've worked with is they really encourage that curiosity, that if you start early, you can really dig around and say what looks interesting. And on our library system and most college ones, there's a whole lot of filters. You can say like, well, what if I was looking at this discipline? How do they look at cancer in the discipline of psychology, right? That's a very different thing. What's the trauma of that? And all of a sudden they're like, oh, I thought I was interested in this, but I found this whole theory that I didn't know about. And so I think when we think about getting them involved, is if they're told you have to write on this, or if they're told you can write on anything without any guidance, that's as paralyzing. I don't know, for me, that's as paralyzing to say you can write on anything, but we're not going to give you a guideline, is to give them some, what are you interested in? And then kind of, are you more interested in this or this? Does this seem, yep, prompts help, exactly. Yeah. Prompts where, and then to talk it out, to do some free writing. I found free writing has helped a lot of folks, which is just sit down with a pen and paper and write down everything you know, everything you think you know, everything you're curious about. It can kind of break open some of the hurdles. I don't know, I'm thinking Olympics now, clearly, so.
We had that issue with our students. You tell them in junior year, you need to write a 4,000 word paper about anything that you've taken an IB class in. And they're like, I don't even know where to start. So giving them ideas and letting them know, here are the subject areas you can write in. This is what we teach at Victor. These are the classes you've taken. Think back, try to do some of that. We call it like pre-research background checks, see what's out there, see what interests you. And I don't think one student ever, from what they start at beginning of junior year, ends up with that at the end. It always goes, morphs into something different. And we always tell them, you better like your topic because you're going to spend a lot of time with it. You're going to be sick of it by the time you're done. But one of the students, when I was interviewing them, they had to do, she was doing biology, and her paper was on what she wrote her extended essay on. So it was so great that she had that knowledge, and she said it was a piece of cake. She did it so quick. So again, having them just be able to look at different examples, different pre-research to do that, because when you're starting from nothing and you have to come up with an idea, it's very daunting.
And I do think the experience of this can also help when they're applying for colleges, to have that. One of the things colleges are looking at is it's not just, are they a good student? It's not just, were they involved in sports? They're looking for, are these students who can manage that transition, and how much help will it take to get through that transition? And if they come in saying, I know what it's like to work for a long time on a paper, I know what it's like, I know I have the ability to ask for help when I need it. That is actually a huge, there's no one in a collegiate atmosphere who hasn't asked for help. So recognizing, I know how to ask for help when I need it. I know that there are different people who I can turn to. I've already got that sense of that. It's one of the things that I think is really, really important, in terms of, they can prove, if their grades aren't so good, but they've done this, they're much more likely for someone sitting and looking through being like, that person can stick it out, because not everything has been super easy. They've worked through this really hard process, and they've turned to folks for help. So. All right, I'm gonna go ahead, Kristen, sorry.
Oh, so I haven't, if anybody else, I'll just check really quickly, but okay, so I wanted to check to see if there were any other questions, but I did have an observation while we were having the presentation today about, during the video Danyelle made with their students, about how one of the students said that during high school, they felt, they have to do the project themselves, and it's this, independent work. And then in college, learning that you can ask for help. And I wondered, with you're all in the audience, or anybody here in this presentation, about your experiences with that idea of you're going into adulthood, being independent, and knowing later how to ask for help, and but still doing it themselves, like finding ways to ask them to help, to get help, to help themselves. I'm thinking that's a really interesting transition itself, that, they start really, it's tiny, and we help them, people, parents, teachers, guardians help them, and then they turn to learning to be more independent, and then saying, oh no, I don't need help, and then how to get that help as they become adults. I didn't know if any of you have any. That was just an observation I noticed, but that asking for help part is a huge lesson I've noticed with undergraduates. And I didn't know if anybody else had other observations with that.
Yes, I work with graduate students, and I say, if you can find a recent good article, you can look at their introduction and lit review to sort of know what else to read, and they're like, what? And it's like, yeah, you do not need to go through 8 billion results. Like, you can work off that. That's great. Excellent. Yeah, I think definitely, like a lot of, if you work with first gen folks, or if you know any, often students don't understand that professors' office hours are the times that they're supposed to get interrupted. They think about office hours are that's when they're working hard and you can't disturb them. So remember, all professors have to have a time where they're available. All instructors have to legally have to have a time they're available. Otherwise it's not an accredited school. So thinking about how to do that, are there TAs, turning to librarians who might know other students who could help. Often there are CETL excellence in teaching and learning programs that have a whole lot of support systems. So just studying next to someone can certainly help. So yeah, it can be really hard. It can feel like everyone knows stuff already. And I think, right, everyone else I'm looking at knows more than I do. And the way out is to ask questions, right? Yep. Yep, the school had to teach public school students. Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah, if any way we can demystify the project is great. Oh, and Kristen, I think yours are going to all panelists and not to everyone. So that's all right. Kristen just said demystifying the process is important. So I hope if you have any questions about open access and high school college collaborations, we are very happy. I know I threw our emails in, and thank you so much, Sally and Christy, for taking us on.
It was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Please remember to click on those CE or CTLE certificate links before we close the webinar. The next presentation will be the High School to College Roundtable. You can access the meeting from the Pillars program to join us there at 2 p.m. In the event that the program is down, you can also access it from the PDF, which it looks like Christy is going to paste in momentarily. One brain, right? Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.